to Summers-Knoll Curriculum Night. I'm Barbara, the first and second grade teacher. A little about me: I have a wonderful husband and 2 children. I've been a part of the SK community for about 6 years now. I found Summers-Knoll when I was looking for a school for my older son, who's now 13. He wasn't happy at his school, so I searched Ann Arbor and went to visit every school I possibly could. And when I walked into the doors at Summers-Knoll, I was overjoyed because the school felt, for me, creative and transparent, and I felt all the students could relax, and they were laying on the floor, sitting in bean bags, sitting on yoga balls, reading, writing, doing their math. But I felt really excited to find a school where the young people could be self-directed in their learning. And that is the reason that I have stayed on with Summers-Knoll, not only as a parent for my children, but also as a teacher. I started out subbing for Summers-Knoll, and then during the pandemic, filled a void by becoming the preschool teacher and then on to first and second grade. My teaching philosophy: I truly believe that all students should have the right to an education that feels interesting and challenging. My goal is to help students become lifelong learners and problem solvers who know how they individually succeed while working with others. I try my best to listen, observe, and be available to all students. I create curriculum that is creative, diverse, and community-focused. Curriculum that embraces decision-making on every level. Students are required to take ownership of their work and learn to communicate. Through this, students become lateral thinkers who can make connection between ideas. So, Summers-Knoll is a project-based school. Other than teaching ELA and math, we are always engaged in a project. This year, a look ahead, my projects are light, emotion, color and sound, fungi and rocks, shapes and art history, school garden, food and water project. Light and emotion, we will write color poems. We will study light waves. We will study vibration. With color, we will study light, transparent, opaque, translucent. We will try to understand why we see color and how we see color. The project will end in a video in which the students will create, expressing themselves and all they've learned about light, emotion, color, and sound. Fungi and rocks, we will explore microbes in the soil. We will explore the relationships between microbes and fungi, and then we will explore the relationship between fungi and rocks. Shapes and art history is a geometry project, actually. We will explore shapes through the lens of the art historian. We will go to the DIA and the University of Michigan Art Museum, local galleries, and we will look at art and find the shapes that we are studying. And this project will end in a community invited art gallery. The school garden, food and water project last year at Summers-Knoll, the first and second grade classes, with help from other grades, put in a school garden. We worked with the Semis Coalition, and this year I hope to work with them again in acquiring a rain barrel for the garden. This project will explore identity through food. We will create cookbooks, and we will hopefully learn about how our school garden is connected to the water sources around us. All the field trips, all the projects are full of field trips. We try to go into the community for each project that we're working on and explore the community as a classroom as much as what we're doing in the classroom. All the projects include an art component where we're actually creating and designing things to either find better solutions for something, to express ourselves, to help us design or put down our ideas in pictorial form or in sound form or in writing form with poetry. ELA, English Language Arts, we really concentrate on reading, writing, and speaking and listening. Our reading program that we use is called Literacy Footprints. I work with the students in guided reading in small groups, and each level of Literacy Footprints has sight word recognition that goes along with it. And each student is assessed when they first come into the classroom on what level they should be at. It's a great program because the students build a lot of confidence pretty quickly from the sight words. We teach students to read phonetically, and we work with a lot of word families, CVC words, vowel blends, and we also do a lot of silent reading, and the children choose books that they're interested in, but also that out of the Literacy Footprints library in which they can already read because we've been practicing in their guided reading. Writing. We do a lot of writing in project. We have project journals. With each project comes its own journal, and the students are writing on all types of topics related around the project. For example, in the light, color, sound, emotion project, we went to the Hands-On Museum for a field trip to try to recognize where we were seeing color, where we were hearing sound, if we were feeling emotion connected to that sound. And we took these experiences back into the classroom and had discussions about what they heard, what they saw, what they felt. And then each student wrote in their journals their experience of sound, light, color, or emotion at the museum. So that would just be one example of how an experience they had out in the community came back in to the classroom in their journals, in their project journals. We also have personal journals, which are more free, which I'm really working with the students to take ideas out of their mind onto the paper without worrying too much about spelling. It's more phonetic spelling, and I'm not correcting their personal journals like I would their project journals, where they would do their best writing. We also work with phonics and letter relationships, patterns, penmanship, and deliberate skill practice and spelling through our Explode the Code curriculum. They each have workbooks depending on their grade. They can move to a higher book if they finish their grade level book. And each student works at their own pace in those books. Speaking and listening, we have classroom discussions about everything, and we are always talking and discussing and participating through speaking and listening. The students are required to do daily reflections on many different topics, not only their emotions, but what they saw during the project or what they learned during the project, what was difficult for them, things they need to continue to work on, things that they are doing well, things that they need help on. So they're always assessing themselves through speaking and listening. And we also have a Dragon Time meeting once a week. That's every Friday. The whole school meets. Different Fridays, different classes, and subjects take turns to present at Dragon Time. And the students might present their project and what they've learned, or a creative idea on how to share what they've learned with the community. So for example, the color, light, emotion, and sound project, the students are creating a video of stories and poetry that they've created in relationship to those topics. There are many, many opportunities for the students to get involved with speaking and listening and showing their individual thought and creativity and strengths. Our math curriculum, we use Singapore math. Singapore has 3 ideas of thought. And first would be that students would use manipulatives to problem solve math equations and learn math concepts. Each Singapore level has a textbook and a workbook. And the textbook is more pictorial. So after they've used manipulatives to understand a concept, for example, dealing with money, we might actually have many activities that the students learn to count the money, they learn to categorize the money, they learn the value of the money, and then they actually are playing games or working in real life scenarios, a fundraiser or a store where they're using those manipulatives to understand the concept of money. Then they might go into their textbook and deal with more math equations using the pictorial aspect, and then on to their workbooks where it's more abstract thinking. For example, there might be a word problem using 2 values of money, and the student might have to figure out how much money would be left over after one item is purchased, something like that. But it is not using the pictures or the actual manipulatives. It's more that they've learned to move those numbers around in their mind or using scrap paper. Small group, I do a small group learning based on the small groups are based on where the students are in their Singapore math workbooks. So if I have several people in 1A, for example, I might do small group learning so that the students could figure out a concept so they could move on into their workbooks. I also do once a week, I do a whole class that's both grades, classroom, activity involving one of those concepts also, so I can continually assess and see where the students are, and also so that the students have many opportunities and many different ways at learning the information. And then also we do independent work where the students are working at their own pace in their Singapore workbooks and textbooks. Students are self-driven during that time and set goals for themselves. For example, they might say they want to try to do 2 pages in their workbook, and then after they do those 2 pages, they could move on to math games. Those are the choices they've set for themselves. The math books, the level is based on assessment, not grade. And so the students can work above or below grade level until they master the concepts and are able to move on to the next book. Project time, making connections and problem solving using math, lots of critical thinking. For example, when we did the garden project, we had to design using a unit of measurement, the layout of the garden, given the dimensions of the garden, how big the garden boxes were. We had to figure out how much dirt we had to buy based on the volume that the garden boxes could hold. So we're always trying to cross disciplines with math and bring those into project time. This year, as I mentioned before, with the geometry art history block, we will be exploring shapes, and that is a math block. So here we go. Science, next generation science standards is what we use for science. This year, the light, sound, color, and emotion project is dealing with sound and vibration, darkness and light. The next one, we will start exploring rocks and fungi, which will be materials and property, matters and its interactions. We're always thinking about plants and animals and changing their environment. We just went to the Howell Nature Center where we got to see a lot of native animals who are no longer able to go back into the wild. So we're understanding the changes in their environment and what they need to survive. We're always looking at our garden through the seasons, talking about the plants and the trees and the things they need to survive and the adaptations that living things have in order to thrive on the planet. Relationships between plants and animals and where they live. Last year, and I will do it again next year, we did a project about the Huron River where we went to 7 different locations along the Huron River and researched the plants and animals and where they lived, and those relationships and formed a brochure and took the SK community on tours talking about the things that we had learned about the Huron River. We're always exploring the seasons and the earth and our place in the earth, from civic participation to make things better for people, and also understanding how the seasons affect us and how they affect the living things around us, as our gardens and animals that we see. So Michigan social studies standards, we use the Michigan K through 2nd social studies standards. It's a concentration on families, schools, and the local community. For example, historical understanding of things in the past. For the Light and Color and Sound and Motion project, we will look at the historical understanding of the first musical instrument. We will, so for the fungi and rocks project, we will look at how rocks are formed and the historical aspect of what forms those rocks and what had to happen. Geographic representations and spatial relationships. We're always doing maps so we can understand on a spatial level where things are at, where the Huron River is, where our watershed is compared to our school garden, understanding the effects on the human environment interactions. We will look at the health of the Huron River. We will look at the health of our watershed, the health of our garden, how we are affecting that. We're always asking questions on what it is between the humans and the other natural life around us and how those interactions are happening. Last year, we had a fundraiser to help a local organization that was servicing animals, and we raised $500 and I think it was $49 for the Humane Society, and the students really felt proud to further the public good by going to the Humane Society and donating that money and being able to see the animals that were in need and that would benefit from that. And that also was understanding that economic activity and what people and animals and plants might need around us and how we play into that system as humans. So general information, community connections. I'm always looking for community connections within my parent body, within the community as a whole. So once I develop my project letter and I send it out to the parent body, I'm always looking for connections. For example, I have a parent who knows, he's an expert on soil and microbes. So I might ask for his expertise to come into our classroom to bring a professional and community connection for us. Also working with organizations like the Semis Coalition, working with local farms if we're doing something about our garden block, just as many community connections that I can pull so that the students understand that they are connected to the community they live in is very important for me. And as the teacher, I understand that there are many opportunities to learn the different things that we're trying to learn, not only through me, but through other parents, other community members, and other experiences outside of our classroom. Which leads me to field trips. We go on quite a number of field trips. For every project, I do extensive research to try to find connections within the community to help the students understand not only the concepts I'm bringing to class through vocabulary words or writing, or but really through experience. So that lateral thinking of making those connections to solve our driving questions or to really grasp our learning intentions can happen. So we do go on lots of field trips, and I feel really lucky at Summers-Knoll because we have our own buses, which we as teachers can drive, and we have small classes, so I can take um, the classes on many field trips. So I think that's it. And oh, monthly check-in communication. I do reach out to the parents and try to let you know how your students are doing every month. And I have office hours, and parents are welcome to call and get in touch anytime. I try to be as transparent as possible and try to be as available as I can during those times. Thank you very much.